Well, good morning. We're here for our weekly Board of Commissioners meeting. It's Wednesday, July 17th, 2019, and we are in the Senator Hearing Room at 555 Court Street. Welcome, everybody, and if you will join us, as always, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That wasn't perfect?
No.
Oh. It must have been the tone of my voice or something. I thought I hit perfection today. Well, we have public comment and nobody has signed up this morning. So we will go straight into our consent calendar. And I believe it's your turn.
I would make a motion to approve the consent calendar. This morning's two items. Under Finance, approve an order reappointing Senator Denise Bowles to the Marion County Budget Committee with a term ending June 30th, 2022. And in Public Works, receive notice of a hearings officer's decision recommending approval of zone change case 19004, Larry and Noreen Chamberlain, trustees of the Chamberlain Family Trust.
Second motion.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Our first item under action today is the Sheriff's Office consider an approval of a proclamation designating the week of July 21st to 27th, 2019 as National Parole and Probation Officers Week in Marion County. And we have the Juvenile Director, Troy Gregg, and our new officially sworn in yesterday, Under Sheriff Jeff Wood. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
I want to say Commander.
Under
Sheriff.
Thank you, Commissioner. Actually, I'm doing two roles right now, so some people have called me Commander Sheriff, some people have called me
Commander,
Commander. Both sound like demotions.
Commander Sheriff. Well, welcome both of you.
Well, thank you. Both Troy and I are here to ask the board to declare next week Parole and Probation Officer Week here in Marion County. Just to give a little color and context to this ask, we've done this probably for the last, that I can remember, 15 years. But in terms of community supervision in general, there has been something within community supervision since 1849 or 1841. It began with a prominent Bostonian named John Augustus, who agreed voluntarily, I might add, to monitor somebody who was charged with being, quote, a common drunk, end quote. The person, Mr. Augustus, took things into consideration, like the person's age, character, people, places, and things that might influence his behavior and compliance during this period of supervision with the police court. Much to the court's surprise, he showed up many months later, clean, sober, with a place to live, astonishing the court and the judge for that matter, and hence community supervision has been born. Although a lot of things have changed over the years, some of these tenets are still in place today. As a state, nationally, there are over 8 million people on supervision. As a state, we monitor about 30,000 adults. Within Marion County, there are 3,100 people that are monitored by the Community Corrections Division here in Marion County. Speaking on the adult side, there are a number of outstanding efforts that we've championed. And although I will say Marion County is a wonderfully collaborative county with a lot of key partners, our community corrections staff absolutely do outstanding work. They've engaged in a number of evidence-based efforts. You've heard me talk about these things before. We, like the juvenile department, implement effective practices in community supervision as our footnote, our kind of key tenet that we utilize to try to facilitate change with everyone. But within the sheriff's office in general, and expanding outside of community corrections, we've implemented core correctional practices. So within Marion County, whether you're pulled over by a patrol deputy, whether you're incarcerated in our jail or our transition center, or on formal supervision here in Marion County, we provide, as crazy as this might sound, cognitive-based interventions trying and designed to facilitate positive change. Some of our efforts that have been ongoing for some years. You've heard about our Drug Endangered Children's Unit that works tirelessly with outside agencies to keep families unified or work towards family unification. Our Senate Bill 416, although the bill itself was designed on a bill that did fail in the legislature, has been wildly successful here in Marion County, providing a effective plan and resources for those who historically have gone to prison, divert them to community supervision and services so that we can facilitate positive change and not have somebody simply sit in a jail or prison cell within the Department of Corrections. Very similar to Mr. Augustus' work, we strive for efficiency by focusing precious resources towards our highest risk population, holding clients accountable, and targeting, like Mr. Augustus, very specific criminogenic risk factors. Does the person have an addiction issue? Do they have a place to stay? Do they need mentoring? What sort of things have happened in their past that would give us a roadmap, so to speak, in terms of being able to predict future behavior so that we can divert them from the mistakes they made in their past? I will say I've often had the honor of talking before you about a lot of our programs, a lot of our collaborative efforts, but it really is the staff who provide those direct services that have the day-to-day engagement with our clientele that I think this proclamation is designed for and that I hope you support. I'll turn it over to the director.
Thank you, Commander Sheriff. I appreciate that. And just like the Sheriff's Office, we talk a lot about, and I've spent a lot of time talking with you about the work that the Juvenile Department does working with youth. And the work that the probation officers is really the glue for all the programs that we ultimately have together, whether it's alternative programming, SCAP, detention. The work that the probation officers is the one that ultimately makes the impact and make the difference, and this board has really done a lot to support them over time, to get them more mobile, to get them out into the community, because we truly believe and know and understand through research, data, and just the work that we do, that it's the connections that we ultimately make with these young men and women and ultimately families that makes the huge difference overall in making the changes. The other thing with the juvenile department is if we do the work that we're supposed to do in our roles with community supervision, ultimately it makes the sheriff's office job in the long run, because these are young people that are growing up that ultimately, if we can make that impact and change, ultimately won't be moving on to committing more crimes in the future and making an impact into the community in a negative way. And so I thank you for the opportunity. And again, I can't say enough about the work that the probation officers do, our staff do. They're the ones that, like I said, we get the opportunity to speak to you a lot, but they're the ones that are in the trenches doing the hard work. And I just thank you for the opportunity to talk just a little bit about them and the work that they do, and ask you, like I said, to please approve the proclamation for next week as well. Thank you.
Questions, comments?
Oh, just thank you for what you do. I know you guys work hard at it and your staff does. So.
Just that comment that we probably said every year, Jeff, that this is such an important aspect of our system, and that since we don't have jail space for everybody, nor do we want everybody in jail, to have some way to have some consequences and stop the repeat offending. This is our best shot, so certainly want to support them.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I know it's been a while, but I've done a couple of ride-alongs with both Jeff, your parole and probation officers.
They still talk about it, Commissioner.
They do?
Oh, yes.
Right, you
Which-
made a splash.
It's not often when a commissioner does a ride-along, and if I recall, some of the locations you went to were fairly dramatic.
As my grandson, when I ask him what the dogs say, oof, it was tough.
Yeah.
Some of those places those guys go into,
Yeah.
and ladies, and Troy with
Cleo, yeah.
with Cleo, an amazing how she interacted with the families of these youth, and really you can see how it's making a difference out there. It was great, but tough jobs that they do every day. And so making sure they have the right tools and the right support is important. I know this board up here, so thank you for both of you for your leadership in those areas. So I will take a motion to approve the proclamation.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve a proclamation designating the week of July 21st through 27, 2019 as National Parole and Probation Officers Week in Marion County.
Second.
A motion and second. All those in favor of approving the proclamation signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay, and we will read the proclamation. Commissioner, if you want to start.
Before the Board of Commissioners from Marion County, Oregon, in the matter of proclaiming the week of July 21st through 27th, 2019 as Parole and Probation Week, whereas the Marion County Sheriff's Office Parole and Probation Officers and the Marion County Juvenile Department Probation Officers are an essential part of the Marion County criminal justice system, and whereas the parole and probation officers of Marion County play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of Marion County, and whereas the parole and probation officers of Marion County recognize their duties to serve the people of Marion County by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, by supervision and monitoring the activities of adult and juvenile offenders living in Marion County, and
Whereas the parole and probation officers of Marion County are trained professionals who provide services and referrals for offenders, and whereas the parole and probation officers of Marion County work in partnership with community agencies and groups, and whereas the parole and probation officers of Marion County promote prevention, intervention, and advocacy, and whereas parole and probation officers of Marion County provide services, support, and protection for victims, and
Whereas the parole and probation officers of Marion County embrace evidence-based practices, utilize effective practices in community supervision, and are a true factor for positive change. And whereas it is important that all Marion County citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifices of their parole and probation officers. Therefore, be it resolved that we, the Commissioners of Marion County, do hereby proclaim July 21st through the 27th, 2019 as Parole and Probation Officer Week, and encourage all citizens to honor the parole and probation officers of Marion County and to recognize their achievements. Witness thereof we have unto set our hand and caused the seal of Marion County to be affixed. Dated the 17th of July, 2019. And we have a couple of copies of the signed proclamation. Do we have the dates of the appreciation barbecues on our calendars here at the board's office?
You do. The juvenile department's is next Wednesday, the 24th, from 11:30 to 1, and the sheriff's office is the following day.
25th at the Transition Center.
Ours is at the juvenile department community center.
Well, we're going to do our best to stop by and say hi and thank everybody for their good work they do.
Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, gentlemen.
you know, Janet used to speak at all those. Did one of you get asked to speak this year? Neither did I, just a comment.
no. It's kind of a cheap shot. They had already left. I couldn't even respond.
I think they think we speak too much,
Oh.
so already.
All right.
All right. So our next item is under the Sheriff's Office to consider the approval of a contract for services with DePaul Industries in the amount of $301,000 for courthouse security services through June 30th, 2020. And the old Sheriff Joe Cast and Commander, good to see you today, Eric. Good morning. The old sheriff. He's sworn in a long time ago.
The old sheriff. Again, Joe Cast, for the record, from the Sheriff's Office, and yes, we're here to ask for an extension or a renewal of the contracts with DePaul Security Services. They do a great job of helping provide security for folks that do business in our buildings over there. And I'll turn it over to Commander Ladd to crunch the numbers.
Commissioners, good morning. For the record, my name is Eric Ladd, and I'm a commander with the Sheriff's Office. I'm here this morning to request approval for the renewal of a courthouse security services contract with DePaul Security Services in the amount of $301,100 through June 30th, 2020. As you may know, DePaul Security provides unarmed front entrance security services at our court facilities, which include the courthouse, the annex, and the juvenile court. They provided this service for over 15 years for us. This service is instrumental in providing a safe place to conduct not only court business, but other visits to our court facilities. These funds come to us from the state as court security funding, and I'm available for any questions if you have any.
So I do have a question. You have anything? My
Not
question
really.
is on the funding, and I don't know if Jan, you got this off the top, but I know we have discussed the ability or inability long-term to fund this program from the state funds that we get. Does anybody know where we're actually at and how that funding is?
If I may, from
Yeah.
my understanding, there's about 3 years worth of funding left to continue the program. And in part, if I understand correctly, during the economic downturn, the prioritization was changed and the court security funding moved in priority for other reasons. So about 3 years, sir.
Are you being tactful for other reasons? Are you saying, so during the downturn, Jan, do you have any comments on this? On the,
I think it's an assessment, isn't it? And it was moved to the state instead of the counties for security. So part of it was diverted to state funding of projects. So that's why it's less assessment funds coming in.
Correct. If I understand correctly, the dollars come from statewide traffic citations, and the prioritization of where those dollars go and who receives those funds in which order is at
Okay.
the state's discretion.
that's
So-
what it was. Okay, so this funding actually pays for not only the courthouse across the street, but the annex and our,
Juvenile court.
And
Juvenile?
juvenile court.
how about our justice court? I know we put some security, didn't we move some security over there after we moved them out of because we had 2 in juvenile, I remember, and we consolidated with the new courtroom. So is that,
I don't believe it's covered under that. I think
Okay.
it's the sheriff's office, right?
I believe justice court is separate from this funding. There were two security folks over at juvenile. At times they'll have 2, and the second person will serve as a floater or on rotation to the other courts, depending on what capacity is at the annex and at the courthouse.
okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I'm just making this up, and it's probably not real important, but because we have multiple sites that I can imagine certainly smaller counties don't have, we mentioned 3, does that affect not having enough money to pay for all of it?
We're fortunate. In fact, we're exceptionally fortunate here in this county to be able to provide the services to our courthouses. Having previously worked in the judicial security unit, there are some courts in this state, they do not have on-site deputy sheriffs or a security service available to them.
Wow. That's huge. Somebody's got their
All
priorities
right.
wrong.
So Chair Cameron, I would make a motion that we do approve the contract for services with DePaul Industries in the amount of $301,000 for courthouse security through June 30th, 2020.
And I'll second the motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I just have a comment. I was able to go see the swearing in yesterday of the new deputies, and I was quite impressed with the new folks you have hired and coming on board. I'm really excited about that. So thank you guys for your work doing that, because I know that's a lot of work as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all
I
those.
won't make my comments till they leave, but go ahead.
You guys want to make a comment to him before we take a vote? Yeah. All right. All those in favor of approving the contract for services signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Wait for it.
Nope, not coming now.
Careful, when you turn your back and you leave, you make a comment. Thank you, gentlemen, for your service.
you.
Really
Thank you.
appreciate it. Yep. All right, the next item is under finance. Consider approval of a contract for services with professional credit service, the amount of $220,000 for debt collection services for the Marion County Justice Court through June 30th, 2020. Speaking of the Justice Court, Jeff White is here. Jeff, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you. As stated, Jeff White, Chief Financial Officer for Marion County. And this is our annual renewal of our contract with Professional Credit Services to perform collection services over our, at the Justice Court. Specifically for this contract, they also provide collection services for the rest of our outstanding debts It's a much smaller amount. It's only amounts to about $20,000 a year. The Justice Court is clearly where we have the most outstanding debts to have collected. This contract is entered into under a state agreement through their cooperative purchasing program. We have used professional credit services for longer than I've been here, I think about 15 years or so. They charge a fee for how much they collect. Those fees are added on top of what we send to them, so it doesn't come out of our funds that we send to them. This is to renew that contract with them for the fiscal year 1920.
Okay. Pretty straightforward. Any questions? Yep.
If I may, Mr. Chair, so this contract's for $220,000. So we must have quite a lot of debt to collect if
We do.
if it makes sense for us to spend 220 grand trying to collect it. What's the ballpark? How much is outstanding?
We have outstanding with the Justice Court debts about $15 million of, that's life to date over, and whatever was turned over when we changed that company. They have a unique way that collection companies turn over debts. So when we went to PCS, they may have taken previous debts, probably from the previous company also. With their fees, that adds about another 10 to 11 million. There's about 26 million total outstanding with fees included. It is a sizable number. If you recall, a year or two ago, we gave them permission to, help me with the word. Garnishments, thank you. That's why you're here today, to use garnishments to help collect on that debt. There are some other measures we could take. We could give them permission to collect those debts through tax refunds that citizens get, but that requires us collecting Social Security numbers, and we don't have quite the security in place to do that. That brings a whole nother level of liability. We haven't gone that far. That would give them more opportunities to collect, but yes, there's a lot outstanding.
Wow. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
All right.
Is it mine?
And just one other clarification, we only pay those fees when they collect them. This isn't an automatic payment we make to them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I do, actually, I'm trying to think there was, and I don't know how it ended up, there was some recent legislation talk about not being able to suspend driver's licenses because of not paying fines. Do you know anything about that, Joe?
I don't know how that ended up. I know that for the judges and the justices, that's a critical part of how they collect, because those processes all happen prior to us sending to PCS. The judge has the ability, or at least had, I don't know the result of legislation, but when you come into her court, there are those people who just pay right immediately. There are people who make payment plans, and those when they don't pay, the judge has the ability to suspend their license to get their attention to come in and pay,
Right.
all prior to going to professional credit services. I know she was not thrilled about that legislation, but I don't know.
It isn't important, I just was curious, but it certainly would impact how we're able to collect.
Yes.
It seemed like there was the portion that we give to the state, doesn't that come off the top before they pay, or do you know how that works? Because it's even worse, so
I don't.
okay, I'll have to find out that on my own. Thank you.
You mean the fees on top of the fines?
Well, there's a formula for dividing
Yes.
up the monies that come from a traffic citation.
Yes.
It's my understanding the state gets there first, but
They do.
I wanted to
So-
make sure it's after there's a payment, but,
Yes, they only get their share when the individual makes a payment, but their
Okay.
piece comes first. We are the last collector of all the fees
Right.
that get paid. So if there's a $150 fine and somebody pays 120 of it, we haven't seen a dime yet. I'm using just made-up numbers, but the assessments and the fines, all that goes to the state comes out of those first dollars. We're the last, I think, I want to say it's the last $16 collected, but we're at the end of the line.
thank you. That's all.
Sure. State's always top priority.
Not with me.
Well, I'm not saying it is with me, but never mind.
Looking for motion?
I think so, before I get in trouble.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the contract for services with Professional Credit Service, in the amount of $220,000 for debt collection services for the Marion County Justice Court through June 30th, 2020.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff. Our next item today under action is consider approval of incoming funds intergovernmental agreement with the Oregon Health Authority in the amount of $17,609,934 for community mental health, addiction treatment, recovery, prevention services, and problem gambling through December 31st, 2020.
Good morning. For the record, I'm Carrie Muller, Health and Human Services Administrator.
Hi, Sydney Nestor, Health and Human Services Division Director for Behavioral Health.
Welcome.
Good morning. As you indicated, we're here seeking your approval for our intergovernmental agreement with Oregon Health Authority for our community mental health services. That includes services to individuals with significant mental illness, addiction challenges, and recovery and prevention services, including problem gambling. I think what's most important for you today here with this item is the funding is just for 18 months. Oregon Health Authority is proposing moving to a calendar year biennium, so we would anticipate then in January of 2021 to get the remaining funds for the remainder of the biennium.
Okay. It's a lot of money. Any questions?
I don't.
I have a
Sure.
question.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
So this contract's for $17 million,
Yes.
but I was looking through it yesterday. It covers a lot of the services that we provide. I mean, I was sort of astonished at the breadth of it. But we also have a contract as a provider with the CCO.
That's correct.
Can you talk a little bit about, is this just a contract and we get paid directly from OHA, or does this interact with the work that we do with the CCO? Are they totally separate contracts? We do totally separate services? How does the money integrate?
Sure. They are complementary. These are what we would consider our state general fund dollars for non-Medicaid billable services and augment our CCO contract. So as you indicated, Commissioner, they support a wide array of critical services, including support for our crisis system as an example, some residential services for our housing supports, so adult abuse investigation. So it really augments the services for the Oregon Health, the billable rehabilitative services that come to us through the CCO.
Got it.
Good.
Yep.
Okay,
All right.
take a motion.
Chair Cameron, I make a motion, we approve the incoming funds intergovernmental agreement with Oregon Health Authority in the amount of $17,609,934 for community mental health, addiction treatment, recovery, prevention service, and problem gambling through December 31st, 2020.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay. We've got a few of them. You're going to just sit there and warm, keep that chair warm. Consider approval for an order appointing Carrie Muller, Ryan Matthews, Sydney Nestor, and Katrina Rothenberg as Marion County Financial Administrators to administer the Oregon Health Authority intergovernmental agreement for the financing of mental health, addiction treatment, recovery, prevention services, and problem gambling through June 30th, 2021. So this is
again,
the financial administration part of that
Yes,
contract.
so this is a complement to the item you just approved, and this gives us the authority to administer the financial agreements. So this is a bit new in terms of how we've done this before. Historically, these have come together as one motion, so we've moved to separating the financial administration out from the IGA. So for your consideration, please.
Okay.
Mr.
Good.
Chair, I move that we approve an order appointing Carrie Muller, Ryan Matthews, Sydney Nestor, and Katrina Rothenberger as Marion County Financial Administrators to administer the Oregon Health Authority intergovernmental agreement for the financing of mental health, addiction treatment, recovery, prevention services, and problem gambling through June 30th, 2021.
Second.
Yeah, motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Next, consider approval of incoming funds intergovernmental agreement with the Department of Human Services in the amount of $689,345 for the financing of community developmental disability services through June 30th, 2021.
So this request is for primarily our developmental disabilities program, and as you see here, the funds for the developmental disabilities program come to us through DHS instead of Oregon Health Authority. The $16 million here primarily funds our case management services and our adult abuse investigation services. We also are financial intermediaries for a whole host of individual services that pass through us to individuals and families, but this request here today is specifically for the services that we provide through our Community Developmental Disabilities Program.
Okay. Questions?
Just one, Carrie. So I'm always curious, and I can never find, is this a higher or lower number than previous years to show any change in?
This number is relatively flat from the
Okay.
funding from the last 2 years, the last biennium.
Thank you. Chair Cameron, I'd make a motion that we do approve incoming funds and intergovernmental agreement with Department of Human Services in the amount of $16,689,345 for financing of community developmental disability services through June 30th, 2021.
I second the motion.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All right, that's done. And the last one, under Health and Human Services, consider approval of an order appointing Carrie Moeller, Ryan Matthews, Sydney Nestor, and Katrina Rothenberger as Marion County Financial Administrators to administer the Department of Human Services intergovernmental agreement for financing of community development disability services through June 30th, 2021.
That was a mouthful. I have nothing to add except I
All right.
request your support for the motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve an order appointing Carrie Muller, Ryan Matthews, Sydney Nestor, and Katrina Rothenberger as Marion County Financial Administrators to administer the Department of Human Services intergovernmental agreement for the financing of community developmental disability services through June 30th, 2021.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay. Thanks, Carrie.
Thank you.
All right, it's a lot of money to do good work with, huh? Okay. Under Public Works, consider approval of a resolution initiating amendments to the Marion County Code Title Number 16, Title Number 17, adopting revised floodplain maps for an area near Turner. Schedule a public hearing for August 28, 2019. Brandon, we haven't seen you in a while. You've been
I know.
on vacation?
Oh, maybe, now and then.
Yeah? Good to see you.
Good to see you. For the record, Brandon Reich, staff representing the Planning Division of Public Works. After the flooding that Turner experienced in January 2012, the city requested a reevaluation of the flood maps in the city and nearby. They requested this of FEMA. The city worked with a consultant to develop a new study of the floodplain, and Marion County staff have been participating in the remapping process. The study applies new, more accurate topographic information from LIDAR, laser topography. As a result of the study, the floodway and floodplain will widen in some locations and narrow in others, and base flood elevations will generally increase. Marion County must adopt the revised maps provided by FEMA and regulate development to the new maps in order for the county and its citizens to be able to continue participating in the National Flood Insurance Program. Marion County and the City of Turner, for some years now, have been working on this, and we've jointly held public meetings, mailed notices to property owners, published notices in the newspaper, and worked with individual property owners on considerations regarding their property because of the changes in mapping. This outreach has helped people affected understand the changes these new maps mean for their property, and also to have them consider purchasing flood insurance early in order to have a better grandfathered insurance premium before the new maps go into effect. The revised maps go into effect on October 18th, 2019. Before the board today is a resolution that initiates the process for the board to consider amendments to the Marion County zone and sets a date for a public hearing for August 28, 2019. Staff recommends the resolution be approved as provided. With that, I'm available for any questions you may have.
Well, I do, Brandon. I know this sets up a public hearing, so we'll get an opportunity to hear from people, and I appreciate and actually laud your thoughts to try to get people to buy flood insurance and get a grandfather at a lower rate than what they're going to have. But this impacts a lot of people that didn't have an issue before, perhaps never really physically had a flood issue, and suddenly they're swept in, have to have it for their mortgage, number of different things. What I was thinking about, there's a lot of growth in Turner, kind of to the north and west. Do you know what top of your head what that is? Because all those new homes might suddenly be included, or were they? Do you know?
I believe the new homes on the north end of Turner, a lot of those are out of the floodplain.
Yeah.
Are out of?
Will be out of the floodplain.
Okay.
It's interesting. It's interesting you asked that question because they're on a lake.
Yeah, that's what.
They
know.
are.
And
They're on that gravel pit, that old gravel pit.
There's a swale behind, too.
Yeah, so, but we don't want to bring them in if we don't have to.
No, and you know, there are some properties north of Mill Creek Road, just right outside the city limits, that were affected in 2012 that were not in the floodplain. Well, we know that area, that topography out there is generally the same as other pieces that were in the floodplain. And so they were affected during the floods, and so they will be brought into the floodplain. The drawback is, of course, having to be maintained or being required to have flood insurance. That can be really difficult for people, and we know that. Something I think all the jurisdictions discovered out of this is, even the statewide floodplain coordinator, the previous one, coordinated with us locally about this idea, is if you ask FEMA for new floodplain maps, you may very well get them, and then there'll be a lot of different changes to your floodplain, and a lot of people will be included. There are ways locally, and we've worked with I've worked with some jurisdiction now to consider, if you're going to do new floodplain maps, especially on your own, generate the data that you need to do the kind of regulation and the kind of standards you want to put forward, but don't go to the point where you develop the maps so that they comply at a federal level, and then that won't necessarily trigger the insurance requirements. At any time, FEMA can come back in and do their own mapping and augment what we've got. But there are ways to regulate and have standards for protection, for elevation, with flood information that don't reach the level of a FEMA floodplain map, and the insurance would still be optional for people, while there's still safety protections built in for elevating and openings and things like that. So we've actually learned a tremendous amount from this, from the kind of requests we'd make to FEMA in the future for any kind of mapping. We're pretty cautious with the information that FEMA is generating in the future because we know what kind of impacts that's going to have on people.
Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, so, and one of the things that I think, this was probably a year and a half ago, I think, Brandon, you may have been there with Congressman Schrader when we talked about the flood insurance, and the underwriting is not regional. The people in Turner are lumped in with the people in New Orleans when it comes to their rates. And have you heard anything more about potentially that being changed at all?
I have not.
Okay.
The rates we pay are national, and
Right.
there's been big events back east, down southeast. There's frequently big events up in the middle north of the United States where there's flooding that occurs. And sometimes there's impacts to very high value structures and a lot of structures. And everyone pays rates based on what happens across the nation.
Yeah.
Whether we paid rates on our own, would it be less? It's hard to know.
Sure it would.
Brandon, my question, I'm just thinking, what are we trying to accomplish at a public hearing? That we accept the maps or not? And then how would we ever, then I'll ask, know that something's valid or good, or I don't know. What is the hearing for?
The hearing is required by FEMA, the hearing is required by our local Oregon law in order to update our zone code to reference the new date on our new floodplain index map. So in order to adopt these maps and apply these maps, we have to reference them in code and include those in our code. So FEMA requires that locally we adopt those maps, and that's the method we do
And
it.
that's, okay.
Now to
I
accept,
don't know how you could hardly say no. That's what my idea is.
we,
Go ahead, Jane.
Go ahead,
I
Jane.
was just going to say, I believe the board could refer this matter to the hearings officer for recommendation.
yes, the board could refer it to the hearings officer for
So she could
recommendation.
conduct a hearing and make a recommendation.
Unless it's just a routine administrative, nobody testifies and we take it as it is. I don't need to make it more complicated. I just couldn't figure out what we're trying to decide.
I think that makes sense.
We're fine.
Is there a chance we can say no and bring on a writ?
Well,
We get sued by the federal government, or?
no, if we don't adopt them, they'll suspend us from the floodplain program, and then people won't be eligible for floodplain insurance, and some people may not be eligible for federally backed loans. So
That's a
they
big
definitely have,
That's a pretty big hammer.
Maybe we'll just cover it.
and
Start our own insurance department, right? Yeah.
we've
No
been
way.
through this process. We've been through a lot of effort with FEMA. This has been maybe 6 years, I think.
Yeah.
5 or 6 years. And we have worked with property owners individually to say, and they've done elevation certificates and to find out if the new maps on individual properties, how it's going to come to play.
So-
So we have looked at that as best we can
Right.
individually.
I know, we've also looked at some mitigation moves as well. Those aren't, I mean, you know, like diverting some water up above Turner, et cetera. Do any of those make a difference if we were to implement them in rate? It wouldn't make a difference in their rates, right?
Turner's actually, we're working with 4 or 5 different jurisdictions right now to look at some mitigation opportunities in the Mill Creek Basin.
Right.
Mostly upstream from Turner. Turner's especially affected because they've got 3 or 4 different streams that come together, and then they all get channeled through this narrow area. And Turner has a lot of impacts from that. But Staten and Almsville also have impacts, and the county does too, people in the county. So Turner just worked with a consultant to develop a number of mitigation options, like areas, like ways to let certain areas flood for a certain amount of time to delay the water coming through Turner.
Yeah.
Or to shift the water or things like that. We're in the process right now of kind of getting the preliminary information back from the consultant. So we should have something back within, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks, 10 weeks from the consultant. And Turner's spearheading this, and then I'll bring that to the board.
Okay.
Some of the options are kind of expensive, just to do that kind of groundwork or to do those kinds of shifting, but there's such a range of options from just dealing with the irrigation channels in a different way to flooding fields. There's a whole, that I'm hoping that there's some good options that'll still make a big impact for Turner.
Okay.
Salem does something similar. Off to the east and the west of Cordon Road, right before you hit Onsville Highway, there are large ponds, and then there are old aggregate ponds that they let flood during a flood, and that significantly reduces the flooding through Salem on Mill Creek. And they hold the water for weeks, and when the flooding recedes and when the Willamettes receded and can accept more water, they're able to put the water through then, and that makes a big difference. To have that amount of capacity in the rural area to affect Turner is kind of what we're looking at through those mitigation options.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Chair Cameron, I make a motion that we approve a resolution that initiates amendments to Marion County Code Title 16 and Title 17, adopting revised floodplain maps for an area near Turner, and schedule a public hearing for August 28th, 2019.
I second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Okay, thanks,
you.
Brandon. It's good to see you again,
Thank
by the
you.
way.
Good to
Thanks
see
for
you.
your work.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to open a contract review board. Consider approval of an order for the class special procurement to contract with providers for adult foster care residential treatment facilities and residential treatment homes to individuals with chronic and severe mental illness through December 30th, 2020. And Camber is here, and Sydney, you're back too. Thank you. Welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Camber Schlag. I'm the Contracts and Procurement Manager in Finance.
Hello again, Sydney Nestor, Behavioral Health Division Director with Health and Human Services.
And we are before you this morning requesting an exemption for a class special procurement. We would like to award multiple contracts to roughly 14 current providers for residential treatment facilities, residential treatment homes, and adult foster care. We issued a notice on Orphan on June 27th, and it closed on July 3rd, and we received no protests. So I will turn it over to Sydney and let her talk about the program.
Hello. So these funds allow us to provide payments to our licensed care facilities in the event that individuals do not have Medicaid or SSI benefits. So typically, an individual served in an adult licensed care facility is covered by Medicaid, and the adult provider bills directly through the Medicaid system. But we receive funds from the state in order to maintain those services for individuals who don't have Medicaid. So this just allows us to maintain our existing relationships with the 14 licensed care providers in the community, who many of whom have served adults with serious mental health conditions for many years.
By doing a class special procurement, this does not prohibit the availability of other providers to step in. The state actually directs us to contract with these 14 providers. They have to go through a vetting process through the state of Oregon, which is how we get them identified to us through the IGA that we receive from the state. So it doesn't limit competition. And yeah, do you have any questions?
Well, one that I don't want to ask, so who are the people that aren't eligible for Medicaid? And
It could be a variety of reasons. It could be that they have some personal assets. Could be that, what is the most, I'm trying to think of the most common
well, if they have
reasons.
personal assets, they don't have to pay those themselves?
They do. They
first?
contribute. Yep, they're required to contribute towards their payment.
All right.
I guess my question would be, recently we've been reading about homes, foster homes in Utah that have kids from Oregon. Will this be impacted at all by that?
No, this is completely unrelated. Those are child welfare contracted residential agencies,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
The Department of Human Services is sending those children to treatment facilities and out of state. These are local and serve adults. And sorry, there's the other common reason. Took me a minute for my mind to engage to answer your question, Commissioner Brentano. Oftentimes when people discharge from the state hospital, there's a gap. So they're not covered by Medicaid when they're in the state hospital. And so sometimes it takes a month or two for their service benefits to kick in. So this allows us to cover the gap in between.
Okay. So, take a motion, Commissioner.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve an order for the class special procurement to contract with providers for adult foster care, residential treatment facilities, and residential treatment homes to individuals with chronic or severe mental illness to December 30th, 2020.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Thank
Thank
you
you.
very much. Okay, I'm going to close Contract Review Board. Before I open this public hearing, does anybody need to take a quick break?
Fine, thank you.
All right, good. So I'm going to open a public hearing. It's under Public Works for a public hearing to consider zone change comprehensive plan property line adjustment for ZCCP PLA case number 18-007 Toft Family LLC. And Joe is here. I hope I pronounced your family correct, the LLC. Toffee. Tofty. Joe, welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Joe Fenimore. This item before you today is an application to amend the comprehensive plan designation from rural residential to commercial, to change the zone from acreage residential to commercial on a 7.15 acre portion of a 9.15 acre parcel, then to adjust the property lines between that parcel and the adjacent 19.8 acre parcel to create a 27 acre parcel zoned commercial and a 2 acre parcel that would remain zoned acreage residential. These are located on Hanneman Lane, southeast in Turner. The hearings officer held a public hearing on February 6, 2019. On May 31st, issued a recommendation to approve the request if the applicant provides additional input on the types of uses listed in the commercial zone to be retained. The applicant plans future expansion of the existing Enchanted Forest theme park by adding the 7.15 acre portion proposed for the zone change to its existing parcel. The hearings officer notes that in 1985, the property containing the theme park was rezoned to commercial general to allow for its expansion. At that time, the commercial general zone contained a large number of uses. Therefore, a limited use overlay was applied to restrict the number of uses permitted on the original property. In finding 29 on page 14, the hearings officer discusses that 1985 limited use overlay and believes an overlay may be appropriate in this instance also, since the site is near and abutting residentially zoned property. In addition, the hearings officer indicates the board should consider applying specific vegetation, retention, and special setbacks to ensure compatibility. Regarding that original limited use overlay, it was removed in July 2004 when the county completed a periodic review work program task to bring the rural zoning code into compliance with Goal 14, urbanization. As a result of that process, the rural zone code was amended by repealing chapters and replacing them with chapters that were acknowledged as being rural. The CG zone was repealed and the commercial zone proposed in this application was created. At the same time, all affected rural properties were then rezoned and the limited uses were removed. The property containing the existing theme park no longer has a limited use overlay. It is now zoned commercial, the same zone as proposed by the applicant in this case. If satisfactory additional evidence is provided, the hearings officer recommends the request be granted subject to conditions. The applicant has submitted additional information for your consideration and will present it to you shortly. You have the option of continuing the public hearing, close the hearing and leave the record open, close the hearing and approve, modify, or deny the request, or remand the matter back to the hearings officer for further review. I'll be happy to try to answer any questions.
Questions for Joe at this point in time?
I have a question, Joe. It seemed like the hearings officer suggested a limited use overlay zone. It seemed like the applicants thought that wasn't necessary. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Are there specific limits the hearing officer thought would be appropriate?
The hearings officer did not identify anything specific, left that up to the applicant to propose if the board wanted to limit the uses.
I see.
Excuse me then,
Yeah,
Joe, you
go
better
ahead.
explain again, this was taken away, so why is it relevant? The
So-
limited use in 2004.
In 2004, the zone was changed and the overlay was taken away. The hearings officer is looking at since this is an added area that could be expanded into, thinks it could be appropriate to limit the uses just so it wouldn't have an impact on surrounding uses, potentially.
Well, that kind of rhymes with the commissioner's question. Are there things that we should be watching for that could be impacted?
The commercial zone allows uses that it's considered a rural code now, rural zone now. It allows uses, it limits the size. For example, a new building or like a restaurant could only be less than 3,500 square feet or less, for example. So it's not based so much on what the use is, it's on the size of the use.
And so this commercial zone that we have, it's different than like a commercial zone in downtown Salem, right?
Correct, yes.
So what kind of uses can someone?
We have uses out there now that include mini storage. We have some small stores that are out there in this existing zone. Those kind of items are what we have right now that I'm aware of.
Okay. And I guess you guys are probably the applicant, huh? Has the applicant indicated their intentions for?
I think the intention is to eventually expand the existing park.
Oh.
That's what it shows in the diagram.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, any other questions?
Well, just a comment, I should look at the map, but this has to be pretty close to a quarry we looked at not very long ago in storage of explosives and stuff. Is that anywhere close to this?
That's
Actually, this is buffered entirely by residential uses
Okay.
around it, so it doesn't have an impact on
That's
this.
right next to
Show up.
Willamette Valley Vineyards. That quarry is down south.
Down further?
Yeah.
Okay.
Farther south.
Yes.
That's
So,
all.
and all the property owners have been notified, Joe, of this public hearing, right?
That is correct.
Surrounding.
Everyone
Right.
within 250 feet around we're notified.
Right, so that would include the vineyard, right? The Maduri home, these homes that are on here?
They're big acreage.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay,
I just saw the one letter from a neighbor. Did you see it in the packet? It was quite positive.
yeah.
Yeah, it was going, well, I went to Enchanted Forest growing up as a kid, and I just took my girls a few months ago, and they loved it, so I'm like very, very supportive of Enchanted Forest. You guys have done a
Were
great
they
job
scared
over
of
the
You're
years.
you're tipping your hand here before we get going.
You gotta be impartial.
Yeah, right?
Whoa, whoa, whoa.
Well,
Wait, wait,
you have
you're-
to take the facts
I
into
think
account. They're doing a great job.
I'll just have the clerk note for the record, the
Strike that.
conflict of interest. That he likes the Enchanted Forest rides. I think he likes the kiddie one, the carousel
I
or
like
something.
all of them.
Yeah,
All
okay,
of them,
all right. Okay,
Mr. Chair, may I ask Joe just a quick question?
yeah, make sure you speak into the microphone.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
So,
Thanks, Jane.
at the hearings officer's comment on at 29, when she looks at the standard industrial classification, and she says that allows things in commercial in this type of zoning, including I think camera and photographic stores and other things, and so she thought a higher level of specificity into the intended use would be indicated here. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I think that the chances of this property being developed separate from the park is, there's no way to get access except through the park, existing park. So I just think in this instance, that's probably not an issue.
Okay.
all right. All right, Joe, so we will, thank you. We're going to go ahead and have the, is it Mike Keen's?
Yes.
Yep.
And I also have Susan Messler with me, who's a member of the Coffey family.
Yep.
and
Want to come over here to the right and introduce yourself for the record?
And good morning, my name is Mike Keene, and I'm an attorney with Garrett Keeman, and I represent the Tofty Family LLC. I also have Susan Veslev with me, who is a member of the Tofty family. And she, along with her sister Mary Tofty, and also in the audience, run Enchanted Forest. At this point, I think Joe set out what the Tofty family is looking to do. I would just point out a couple of things. The 7-acre parcel that they're looking to include into what's used as Enchanted Forest, there are no concrete plans for expansion. In fact, there's an expansion area on the existing parcel that has not completely been built out yet. This is long-range, just-in-case kind of planning by the family. They had the opportunity to purchase the property, which is immediately to the south recently. And so other than generally expanding the park, as Mr. Fenimore said, there is no way to access that piece without going through the park. There are no concrete plans for specific rides or anything along those lines. They're not planning on applying for a building permit at any point in the immediate future. There are a couple of conditions that the hearing officer recommended, including a setback for this new expanded parcel, as well as some vegetation requirements. What the Tofty family would propose is that the setback be 20 feet from the property line for any additional development of the property, and they would also propose that the vegetation requirements be that it be that this buffer area be kept in its natural state. The property is heavily forested. It's a fairly steep uphill slope in the back of it, and that would be in line with the current development of Enchanted Forest. If you've ever been out there, it is already, even the developed portion is heavily wooded and forested. The whole idea and the whole concept of the park is a forest, and they like to blend the rides and attractions and their villages into the surrounding countryside, as well as the vegetation. So that would be our proposal for the setback as well as the vegetation requirements. I think anything more on vegetation simply wouldn't be practical given the terrain. You'd have to actually cut down a fair number of trees to get sunlight in there to put any kind of more elaborate landscaping in there. In terms of the uses and limited uses, an amusement park, I think, which is fairly broad. I think that encompasses the rides and some of the existing retail. I mean, they have an ice cream shop and also a gift shop and a small theater and things like that is primarily what they would be interested in. There is a separate designation under the rural commercial zone for retail, and they would like to keep that as well, just to make sure that they can expand. If they, for example, if they decide they're going to put a small village or expand one of their villages over there, that's an option, or a combination of that or future rides, and they just don't know. And at this time, we would like to open this up if you have any questions or if you need additional information.
I just
Yeah, Sam.
minor, and maybe Joel get at it, but I just a little more definition of, or identifying what that buffer zone is. That sounded rather vague. So how would this be incorporated into an agreement or whatever?
And I think what we can do, and I don't want to speak for the county, but I think it would be a 20-foot setback from the
I
property
got that,
line.
but
Yeah.
the natural area, the buffer.
That is a good question. I think it would simply be in that 20-foot area to not remove existing vegetation or to replace existing vegetation should it die, with, possibly an exception to removal for safety if it's a tree or tree limbs that need to be removed for safety reasons.
Okay.
So I've heard twice there's not access unless you go through the park, but as I look at, and I understand there may be a steep slope, but I see a road that goes through here to the existing home. So you can't access, I mean, right now you can access the whole property through that road.
In theory, you could. There is a house up there, and you're correct, and I believe the hearing officer, and I should have mentioned this before, recommended that approval be also conditioned on not using Hanneman Road as access to the park, and my client is perfectly fine with that. They have no plans or desire to do that.
All right.
I should say public access to the
Correct.
park. We do have a hydrant system up there, a water storage tank that, the fire department would need to access if anything was happening up in that area.
And just for the record, could you introduce yourself?
Susan Vasleb.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Susan. Anything else? You good? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And there's nobody signed up, nobody else signed up, no opposition. We did receive one letter from a neighbor. It's in the record. Joe, welcome back. Go ahead.
Well, Joe, if you just heard my question, so you would have in this, as a result of this hearing, would you say acceptance of a 20-foot setback,
Yes.
natural barrier within that, so you could write that up and document it, and the same prohibit public use of Hanneman Lane. Is there anything else that needs to be addressed, or does that even need to be mentioned? Is it automatic? Well, I don't quite know where to go.
I think if you look at the last recommendation on page 16, the hearings officer recommended some conditions, including a special setback, and number 7 was a natural vegetative buffer. We can use this language between the applicant's attorney and I, and probably Scott or Jane, and figure out what the appropriate wording is for the conditions to get that, to maintain that setback and include that vegetative requirement.
Okay, other than those setbacks, is there anything that needs to be specifically mentioned, addressed?
I think nothing that's not already addressed. The hearings officer talks about access from ODOT, because Enchanted Way is under ODOT jurisdiction. Hanneman Lane shall not be used for commercial access, so I think it's pretty, I think it's there already.
All right, then I'm going to try to make a motion, if it isn't enough, can help me, but I'd move that we close the public hearing and accept the hearings officer's recommendation, but note that it will require 20-foot setbacks where appropriate, natural vegetation maintained in the buffer, prohibit public use of Hanneman Lane. Anything else?
Looking at legal counsel.
I believe she did recommend a limited use overlay, so I don't know if you want to.
Is that in her recommendations?
It's
On page
in,
16?
well, she doesn't, it's a little confusing because she said applicant agreed to a limited use overlay, so she doesn't recommend it, but she talks about it, so I don't know if you want.
If I could, it seems to me it was done away in 2004. We've seen arguments in the book from, I assume maybe you, an attorney, saying that it isn't appropriate anymore. It sounds like it's all covered under current zone, so I don't know that it needs to be there, makes it unwieldy and kind of strange.
Okay.
But you know more than I do, so tell me that's wrong, and I'm fine.
No. I just want to make sure we're clear when we bring it back
But
to you.
it doesn't include that,
Yeah.
okay. That's my motion then.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 So this will come back in ordinance form
Sure.
Yes.
Right.
for adoption.
Got it.
All right.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank
And
you.
to clarify,
Thank you for being here today.
it will not include a limited use overlay.
Correct.
Great.
Thank you. Okay, so we have, I'll conclude the public hearing, and we're going to read the calendar.
Today is Wednesday, July 17th. It's 10:06 a.m. and we're in board session in the Center Hearing Room on the first floor of 555 Court Street, Northeast in Salem. This evening at 7 o'clock, we have the Aurora Airport Information Session located at the Helicopter Transport Services at 14497 Keel Road in Aurora. On July 18th, that's tomorrow, Thursday at 7 in the morning, we have a Salem Area Chamber of Commerce Public Policy Meeting located at the Salem Area Chamber of Commerce, 1110 Commercial Street, Northeast in Salem. Tomorrow, July 18th at 8:30 in the morning, we have a City of Salem, Marion County meeting at the Sassy Onion located at 1244 State Street in Salem. Monday, July 22nd at 8:30 in the morning, we have calendar review located in the Silverton Conference Room on the 5th floor of this building. On Monday, July 22nd at 9 a.m., we have management update located in the Silverton Conference Room on the 5th floor of this building. And on Monday, July 22nd at 11 a.m., we have a Board of Commissioners Chief Administrative Officer meeting located in Silverton Conference Room on the 5th floor of this building. On Tuesday, July 23rd at 8:30 in the morning, we have a Community Corrections Board located in the Silverton Conference Room on the 5th floor of this building. On Tuesday, July 23rd at 10 in the morning, we have a special board session to fill the vacancy for Oregon House District 19, located in the Senator Hearing Room on the 1st floor of this building. On Wednesday, July 24th at 9 a.m., we have board session located in the Senator Hearing Room on the 1st floor of this building. On a Wednesday, July 24th at 11:30 a.m., we have the Marion County Juvenile Department Luau Barbecue located in the Community Corrections Room, Fresh Start Market, 3020 Center Street Northeast in Salem. I'm going to be there at that Luau Barbecue. Sounds pretty good.
You gonna dress Hawaiian style?
Maybe a Hawaiian shirt. I don't know if I need to go beyond that.
Well, let's see.
Sign some of these things?
Yeah, go right ahead. Those are all for you. So, what's happened this last week?
Well, we had our fair. I had a good time there.
Yeah?
Lots of milkshakes. Looked nice. I haven't final counts on crowds, but it looked like it was popular. And I had some of I shouldn't even tell this story myself. The best cheesecakes ever, blueberry cheesecakes.
How many did you have?
I had 4, which is an increase, but honest to goodness, they were all, any one of them.
Yeah?
You could have took. This might be, and it's after the fact, so it's not really a bribery deal. The winner asked if I'd like to take the pie back with me.
Oh, geez.
So if that's Class C misdemeanor or some ethics thing, I didn't list it, but, it was good.
And who was the winner this year?
I always get her last name. She was a Hayner, but Janine Hayner.
Oh, yeah.
She can make.
She won again, huh?
Yeah. Well,
she's had it like a few years running, hasn't she?
3 in a row.
Oh,
But
that's pretty good.
she commented, and I don't know, 3 different recipes but she must just be able to anticipate what I'm gonna like. But they were, I graded them by, I mean, it was pretty official, by points. And hers stood out, then there was 2 tied for second. I broke the tie just because one had more blueberries in there.
Yeah.
Not really valid, I know, but what do you do? But I was pretty happy with it.
I saw Janine before
you
she
know
went in. Yeah, I saw her. She was there with her kids beforehand. It was right after greeters, and she was looking pretty confident. She told me that she
Did she?
had won the last couple of years.
I didn't know that, but I'll tell you something. This is legitimate. I knew, and I'm half related, just so you know.
I'm sure, of course you are.
I wish I had this up on CCTV because this is.
Oh, that's a great
This
picture.
is him, like,
Yeah, look at that.
filling his belly.
Look how serious he is.
Yeah, I'm serious.
Yeah.
I had a good point to tell you, too. Oh, I know how fair I am.
Uh-huh.
Because I know these kids are sitting right in front of me, watching, so I don't look at them, because I don't want to see where their eyes are
Right.
and give away which one the mother's made.
Oh, look at them
that's
just
pretty
sitting there.
legitimate.
Wow.
Look at all those kids just staring at him.
See? And I didn't even look at them.
Yeah,
I didn't know.
they
This is
totally are.
strictly-
They're like,
Strictly legitimate.
you picked the wrong pie, mister, and we're coming for you.
You didn't know I took that one from behind you.
Yeah, they're right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were all good, and it was fun.
Now, did Carrie submit her cheesecake?
No. No, what was that about? I'm sorry you had to mention that. I wish you would have done it earlier. And she brought us a sample during the year, and I told
Right.
her that would compete. Well, I'll have to take care of that.
Maybe she was intimidated by Janine.
Yeah, we had
Eisenbacher, that's right.
good greeters turnout for the multi-chamber greeters. That was good.
Yeah, what did you give me grief about, too? That was bad. Oh, I didn't know the county motto. And you had to look it up, so don't, and then make me look like a fool. Yeah, how does that go?
I liked your ad-libbing. It was good. It was pretty good. I mean, you could have done a lot worse.
Yeah.
What is the county motto?
Ask him, you have to look it up. I thought, I threw out maybe protect and serve, and I thought, well, I kind of like that. And people were accepting it. We should change our motto, because it should be something people could remember.
There was something about excellent customer service or something, as I recall.
Yeah, would you?
Yeah, service with excellence,
Yeah,
right?
it sounded
Right.
like way, sounded like, a business guy.
Yeah,
did it.
we have work to do, Jen.
We're gonna put it on the
Would
agenda
ya?
for you for next.
Yeah, make something these poor guys can remember.
Yeah.
And then, that was another very big disappointment. The new guy, Commissioner Willis,
Our motto, delivering excellence every day.
Oh, there you go.
if we could remember it.
Delivering excellence every day.
But John Latimer,
Expect excellence, that's what this says.
I'm trying
That's
to,
what it should be.
maybe I shouldn't bring this up, but I'm
Expect
just gonna end
excellence.
my comments this morning. I'm just still taken back and disappointed. John Latimer's final go, favorite commissioner, annual contest.
That was me. That was pretty good.
And he chose, what was that?
You set him up.
That was pretty good.
I set him
you
up
set
to
him up.
say me.
He picked
He tells
me.
me
Well,
how.
that's right.
Well, what we should be roasting is Jan, because she
Didn't even show
invited,
up.
she invited John and she didn't even show up.
even
He was
show up.
upset. Yeah. Yeah, you set him up to do that, Sam.
Yeah,
you
but I
set-
was
you-
expecting a different answer,
But
I'll
you
be
set
honest.
him up to say, the new guy doesn't count, so who's the
Yeah.
favorite?
And then he picked the new guy.
And then he picked the new guy.
But don't you think it was a joke? Because, everyone knew that it wasn't the new
So,
guy.
Jan, be ready next year to make your decision, and we'll be,
I'll know the right answer.
did I have to carry this load for a whole year, will be troublesome.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a fun week, as you can tell.
And the flowers, don't forget. You got second place.
Oh.
The flowers. But you didn't lose to the succulents? Is that
No, I think I did, if
Oh.
you really want to know the
Mm.
truth. And
Sorry-
I'm gonna
sorry
have to
to bring
work,
it
well,
up.
you know, if you would have backed me up on that one, I would have outlawed him as being classed as flowers.
I'm still a swing vote.
I know, and so start doing it. Succulents. It's not even nice to say.
Oh, we got a load of stuff to sign today, don't we?
And
Well,
then, I'll just end this on a more serious note. We do get to choose another state rep here. Is it Thursday? I don't even know that. I believe it is. That's next Tuesday? Anyway, that's always one of the, to me, the more important things we do. So, it'll be interesting.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
And this goes with everything you signed. Okay, we will adjourn.